Jen, it's Fantasy Festivus and time to air your fantasy grievances. Who let you down this week?
Well, I'm going to go with the primetime game scheduling / whatever. So not necessarily fantasy, but still, right? Brutal, right? We get Denver, San Francisco, Sunday night. Absolutely brutal. I mean, unless you have skin in the game, betting wise, fantasy wise, like very, very difficult to watch. Then Monday night we get Giants, Dallas, same thing. I mean, unless you're pulling for fantasy people, totally brutal to watch. So kind of a thumbs down for the scheduling. I mean, I get it. They didn't think. I mean, Denver, San Francisco seemed like a good, matchup on paper when they were planning the schedule. Absolutely rough. The good news, though, is coming up this week. We actually have some good games. Thursday night, we have Miami, Cincinnati.
Yeah, we do.
On paper, should be good. Sunday night, we get KC against the Bucks, which should be good as well. And then Monday night, we get Rams 49ers again. But still, I think we should be in good shape, at least for this week, at least on paper. So total bummer for all of us that had to sit through and endure those games. I'm sure a lot of people turned it off and watched other stuff, unless you had skin in the game, like I said.
I'm with you. That Denver San Francisco game was one of the worst games I've watched at all. Just ugly. Wasn't fun at all.
Wasn't even football. It was
just,
what are we doing here?
Just terrible. All right, now let's get to the show. Welcome, everyone, to the most accurate podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Niles. With me are my excellent co-hosts, Jen Eakins and Chris Allen. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Another fun weekend, like outside of the games that y'all were just talking about. I thought it was another fun weekend of football, gearing up for Thursday night, like you guys were just talking about, like my Bengals going up against the undefeated Miami Dolphins. So definitely shapes up to be an intriguing matchup, which I'm kind of crossing my fingers and hoping the Bengals come out on top, but neither here nor there. Either way, I'm doing all right. Jen, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm very well. It's funny that you talk about the undefeated Dolphins because, as some of you know, my family are lifelong season ticket holders from the day of the expansion. And I was talking to my sister the other day, and she was just like, wow, it feels like the 80s again. Like, it's so fun, like stadium rocking. People are psyched. It's been a rough couple decades for the Dolphins. So I'm excited for that game as well. And I'm excited that we're rolling into week 4. I'm into it. Brandon, how's it going for you?
It's the TMAP Bowl Thursday night, right? Bengals, Dolphins, TMAP Bowl, everything on the line. Undefeated Dolphins. I was told Tua Tagovailoa can't throw, doesn't have an arm, doesn't belong in the league. I'm very excited about the Dolphins. As a reminder, this is our weekly streaming episode. We emphasize hot pickups for the primary streaming positions. That's quarterback, tight end, kicker, and defense. Before we get into that, I want to tell you about a new pick'em game called No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for a shot at winning over $250,000 in cash. Just download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. You can also test your skills versus the house and earn 20 times your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league. Sign up now with promo code 4for4, that's 4FOR4, at nohouseadvantage.com, or download the app to get a first-time deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. You won't want to miss out on this. All right, so week 3 results. Let's check in on how we did last week. Chris, buddy, lightning on fire week 1 and week 2. Sleeper streamer of the week last week, Jimmy Garoppolo, plummeted down to 30th, unfortunately. Sorry to hear about that. However, Marcus Mariota, 14th, Jared Goff, 19th, your other quarterback streamer. So good on that, Chris. That's fringe QB1 play. I'll take that.
I'll take it. Yeah, sure.
Jen, tight ends
Brutal.
didn't really work out for you. Evan
Brutal.
Ingram, I'm not going to even mention the others at the moment. Evan Ingram
No.
was the highest at 34th. Tight end's a wasteland anyway.
It's just, yeah. I mean, this is a chore from week to week. I feel good about this week's though, once we get into it. But I also felt good about last week's too. It was ugly.
And then your kickers, also a
Just
little
as
rough.
ugly.
Yeah, just as a little bit rough. Jake Elliott, Austin Siebert, 17th each. Cade York tied for 22nd. I like Cade York though long term. He's a kicker I don't mind actually having on my roster. So not too bad. But this week we'll do better. Defense, I finally got somebody with a defense one ranking. So the Chiefs finished tied for 11th. I'll take it. I'm going to go with that. Atlanta, unfortunately, tied for 20th. A lot of people were high on the Atlanta defense last week. Didn't work out. And I thought shot in the dark Giants at 31st. They actually didn't stink against Dallas. They just didn't do anything. So 31st, just a poor showing. So KC, though, tied for 11th. I'll take it for right now.
There's only 32 teams in the league, right, Brandon?
Yes, only 32.
Okay.
So yes, Giants. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Appreciate that. Look, look at you looking out for me. I see that. I see that. Making sure I know math and stuff. All right, so let's go into our sleeper streamer of the week this week. Chris, which quarterback is your number one sleeper streamer of the week for week 4?
So this one's kind of a throwback to last week because I had tossed in Jimmy Garoppolo, unfortunately, but Marcus Mariota was like my other top streamer for last week. And I'm going back to the well here in week 4. Now he goes up against the Browns and we'll see. I mean, with Myles Garrett in that nasty car crash just yesterday, if I'm remembering correctly, we'll see if Cleveland's defense is, I guess, up to full strength like come Sunday. But Marcus Mariota at least checks off like most of the boxes that we want for a quarterback streamer, right? Playing at home, so they are going to be down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, not Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but forget the name of the stadium actually. But down in Atlanta, like back at home, like for this week, they are favored. The actual total is like about 50 points, if I'm remembering correctly as well. So it's just all of the things that we want like for a quarterback streamer. And of course, I mean, Mariota is rushing and we do have at least a couple of touchdowns already for him, like on the ground, also a couple through the air. We're actually seeing like some actual, I guess, progression like for Mariota and the passing game with Kyle Pitts getting involved. And overall, like while they are bottom 5 in pass rate over expectation, that's according to our director of analytics, like Sam Hoppen, Marcus Mariota has actually been top 12 in EPA per play so far, like through 2 weeks of the season, actually top 5 in passing success rate as well. So for a guy that has been essentially just leaning on like a rookie, I mean, Drake London, who missed like most of the preseason because of his hyperextended knee, we're actually seeing at least an efficient and aggressive passing game like from Marcus Mariota. So if you combine the efficiency along with the rushing production that we've seen from him so far, I mean, the Cleveland Browns, like, have actually given up like 2 rushing touchdowns to 2 opposing quarterbacks so far this season. I do think that Marcus Mariota is probably the best or probably the most optimal quarterback streaming candidate for week 4.
I love it. Also, just a good dude. Love me some Marcus Mariota. Don't forget, listeners, Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform with excellent custom settings for fantasy commissioners. I'm talking Dynasty, Redraft, IDP, you name it. Easily accessible, wildly mobile friendly. Go download the app and join or start a league today. So let's go. Let's keep with the quarterbacks. Definition of a streamer. I say this every week, but it's a player with less than 40% rostership on Yahoo. That's how we determine. So if we're missing a big name that you're expecting to hear as someone you want to start this week, they probably are on too many rosters in Yahoo. So, Chris, any other quarterbacks for us?
The second one, again, doesn't check off. Well, he checks off like most of the boxes because this one's Geno Smith, like playing for Seattle. And like so far, I mean, the Seahawks from a passing perspective hasn't been that bad. I mean, like we've seen Geno Smith pop up for a couple of good games so far, especially after that like craziness that happened in week 1 when they invited Russell Wilson back home in order to pretty much douse the flames of any good things that could happen for the Broncos like this season. But looking at the way that the Seahawks passing game is shaped up so far right now, they are like about average in terms of pass rate over expectation. They're about 15th so far, but Geno Smith, another top 12 quarterback in EPA per play. So while he's been more of a dink and dunk type quarterback, I mean, it's been like fairly conservative in terms of the air yards per attempt. I believe he's like 22nd in air yards per attempt across like all the quarterbacks so far. I mean, we don't really expect to see a ton of aggression like coming from, or I guess a ton of pushback like from the Lions defense. This is using our schedule adjusted at schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed metric that's over at 4.4 right now. That statistic just went live like earlier today. Detroit, the Lions are 23rd in AFPA, according to, or I guess against like opposing quarterbacks like so far. So if we do have a fairly weak matchup like for Detroit, against Detroit rather, for Geno Smith in a dome, we've actually seen like most other quarterbacks like fare well so far against them, against the Lions like so far this season. Again, another good total, 50.5 points like so far. I do think that it sets up well for Geno Smith to be at least a viable candidate like for week 4 alongside like Marcus Mariota.
Excellent. I like that. Jen, any thoughts on this Seattle offense, and how are you approaching the Seattle offense with Geno in charge?
I'm not really approaching the Seattle offense if I can, I don't know. It's so tough. I am someone that drafted Rashad Penny, and he's just, I feel like this whole offense is tough, right? You're not going to drop them. You're still waiting. They're doing okay, like just enough to keep them there. They're not completely stinking it up, but they're not great. And so I think they're all viable fillers, flex guys. Like Chris said, I mean, Geno Smith, I think is fine. If you need him as your QB2 in a super flex, or if you're really screwed and need him as your QB1. But, this offense is definitely not something I'm targeting for any reason or another. But I believe that they are exceeding expectations of what anyone really thought. I mean, they're playing football, which a lot of us didn't think was really going to happen. I mean, everyone kind of poo-pooed and dismissed the entire offense during draft season. But they're all serviceable. Like I said, not seeking any of them out, but they're all serviceable.
Wrote them off. I definitely wrote them off, and they definitely look like a functional football team, which is nice. Chris, are you worried about Matt Ryan, or do you think he's just taking some time to get accustomed to the offense?
Yes and no, because after they completely bottomed out against the Jags just a couple of weeks ago, I actually saw, at least looking at the underlying metrics, I mean, their pass over expectation dipped up or came back up like just this past week. But the one thing that happened is like all the rest of the metrics like were essentially scaled back. I mean, the red zone passing rate was scaled back. Actually, like Matt Ryan's air yards per attempt were almost like nearly like cut in half. But at the very least, like while he was still sacked a ton, it was actually less than the previous week. So while I'm not going to place like all the blame on the offensive line, it does go back to like, is Matt Ryan comfortable with this offense? I mean, is he in sync with all of his receivers? And for the most part, I mean, we saw like Kansas City's defense really put at least a decent amount of pressure on him like last week as well. So, I mean, those are two fairly tough defenses, to be quite honest. I mean, Jacksonville, well coached like defense like so far like through 3 weeks, and actually looks like that team is going to be at least in contention like in the AFC South. Kansas City, like while they still wound up pulling out the win, I do think that Kansas City they were the better team. I don't think there's really any, like nobody would really give me much pushback on that. So if we're looking at the Titans right now, I mean, with the defensive struggles, or at least the defensive woes or injury woes they've had so far throughout the season, and we do have the pass catching core like for Indianapolis coming back completely healthy, no setbacks for Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce should still be involved, I mean, so on and so forth. I mean, at least sets up for Matt Ryan to have at least another viable day, like as a viable quarterback streaming option. But unlike Geno Smith, where he doesn't have like the top end weapons like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, unlike Marcus Mariota, where he doesn't have the rushing upside as well, he's more of a deeper option. Like if you really can't find anything else on the waiver wire, if you like most of the passing options that are associated with Matt Ryan, you can at least look at him as a deep option, like in week 4.
Sure, it was nice to have an Alec Pierce sighting last week. Yeah. Too. He looked pretty good. Not big numbers or anything like that, but I like that kid.
Go Bearcats. There we go.
That's right. Go Bearcats. Jen, let's dive into the tight end stream. Is it a good or a bad week to stream tight end?
On paper, it looks to be wonderful, but we all know how that. Listen, tight end is crap. We all know it. We're all, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic at this point. But, here we are. So let's do it. First guy that I have this week is Big Bob Tunyon. He's 29% rostered right now on Yahoo. He is playing at home at Lambeau against New England. So the Patriots gave up, 10.2 half PPR points to Pat Freiermuth in week 2, and they gave up a whopping 24.9 to Mark Andrews last week. So right now they are 24th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends. So New England, they're giving away points to those tight ends. Tonyan was second last week in targets to Romeo Doubs. So, he's coming back, right? The chemistry is returning between him and Andrews now that he's healthy. So I like Tonyan. I think that he's, I will say, like, looking at his routes run and all that, it's a little lower than desirable, than the metrics call for, blah, blah, blah. However, I do think that Tonyan's a good option this week. He's out there. He's only 29% rostered, and he should have a decent week. Number 2 in my streamers is one Tyler Conklin. I can't. It's hard to even get the words out because sometimes I'm like, what are we doing here?
Tyler Conklin, little known stat, top 5 player in the league in times dropped and added on Brandon Niles' rosters.
Yeah, I actually added him this week as well. I didn't play him, but I added him on my Pitts team because I was like, I need some insurance at this point because I don't know what's going on. So he's riding my bench right now. But Tyler Conklin this week, if you need him, they are playing at Pittsburgh. He is 22% rostered. He is tight end 5 right now, fellas, in half PPR points per game. Yeah, he is at 9.6. He's had 7 or more targets in every game. There's the issue of Zach Wilson, right? If he comes back, is this still going to continue? We don't know. But it's a decent matchup. Pittsburgh is 23rd in adjusted fantasy points allowed. They're allowing 12 points a game right now to tight ends in half PPR formats. So grab some Conklin if you need a streamer. He seems to be, at the moment, consistent through 3 weeks. Third guy is Hayden Hurst. So we're just going to ignore last week, right? Didn't happen. It was the weird Tyler Boyd show. It's not going to happen again. Hayden Hurst, I have faith he's going to come back. He's 21% rostered right now in Yahoo. He saw 15 targets between weeks 1 and 2. Miami gave up 21.2 points to Andrews in week 2. Now, Hayden Hurst is not Mark Andrews, but as a streamer, I think he'll be fine as as an option. He's available, and I feel like he is an integral part of that offense. Last week was just a weird anomaly. At least that's what I'm going with. So
he was hurt.
I'm sorry that he was. And I actually, while you were talking about quarterbacks, I got an update on my little phone here that he has been moved from questionable to healthy. So this early in the week, that's good. We like that. So hopefully he's healthy and he'll be back to, he's not going to light up the scoreboard. He's not going to put up 25 fantasy points, but if he can get you 10, 11 points as a streamer, we're happy with that.
That's a big win. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Chris, rumors are that your next brew will include a Conklin IPA. Is that true?
I'm not sure about that. I have to look into it. I'm not opposed to it, to be quite honest. But
it sounds like a beer, a Conklin. I'm gonna grab a Conklin.
I don't hate that.
See, now that you said that, that actually does sound like a beer.
It's like a 9% double barrel aged or something like that. So.
Now I can't think of anything else. Now that is the style. Like you've just created a new style of beer, Brandon. Congratulations.
The Conklin style. Darren Cheese wants to know if you trade James Robinson, Amari Cooper, Tyler Boyd for Christian McCaffrey. Chris, I love James Robinson as much as the next person, but if you've got receiver depth, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. You want to make an argument?
If you really feel that you need him at that point, for McCaffrey, you are getting the better running back, and if you've got the receiver depth, sure. But man, I'm just wondering, what other receivers would he have? I guess he must have Cooper Kupp and I don't know.
Yeah, that's a lot, I think, for McCaffrey.
Insert another high-end wide receiver too there. But I guess if you got,
I don't hate it, but it's not an automatic for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sense. So assuming you've got wide receiver depth, then
absolutely,
then interested at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Fair enough. Ray wants to know if you trade Mike Williams for Kyle Pitts if you have Zach Ertz. This is a no for me, Jen. What do you think?
So you have Ertz, but you're trying to get Pitts. No, I don't think so. I don't know. We had one decent game from Pitts. We had 2 really bad games. They're still not using him to the best of what we think we should do. That offense is really not great. With Keenan Allen hurt, I don't know. I think Ertz is fine. I wouldn't, but then again, I don't absolutely hate it. But if it was my personal team, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I like Russ, or I like Ertz, so just fine is fine for me. What about kickers, Jen? What kind of kickers do you have for us this week?
Oh, all right, let's do kickers. All right, first guy is Austin Seibert. This is crazy, you guys. And I know, and I write this in my article. If you would have told me that I would have had a Lions kicker as my top streamer of any week this season, I would have laughed. And the crazy thing about it is that the Lions have the highest implied team total of the week. this week at
It's
27.75.
a golden age. It's a golden age.
I mean, what a world we're living in, right? So yeah, Austin Seibert, they're at home against Seattle. They are 6-point favorites, and they have, like I said, an implied team total of 27.75, which is the highest on the slate. I mean, we're talking above Kansas City, above Buffalo, Anyway, I find that intriguing. But Austin Seibert is available in 97% of Yahoo leagues, so he is out there for you. And he is my number one streamer for the week. I mean, he is he's solid right now. Second guy is a guy that every week I sit here and say, I don't know why he's a streamer, and he's still a streamer. Jake Elliott is still only 37% rostered on Yahoo, which makes no sense to me. I mean, Philly is playing lights out. I don't know why people aren't grabbing the kicker for that. That's usually what you do, but they're not. So this week they're at home against Jacksonville. They're 6.5-point favorites, and they are their implied team total is 27.5. So Elliott, once again, I mean, he hasn't been fantastic, but he's been fine, and I feel like he should be rostered in more leagues. So he's a good one out there for you, for those of you that need a streamer. Third guy is Mason Crosby. They are playing the Mac Jonesless Patriots, who I think the line went from like 3 to 10.5 after that happened. So right now, and then they're playing at Lambeau. They're 10.5-point favorites. They've got a 25.25 implied team total. Crosby's only 5% rostered. You know, it's weird. I was reading about him. Like, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity. Like, the Packers have fumbled on in the red zone, and just weird things where it hasn't worked out for him as far as opportunity goes. But the Packers are starting to score points, and he has been cured of the yips. I know he had the yips last season, but he is Crosby doesn't seem to be missing anything, at least the opportunities that he is getting. So he's my third guy. I'm going to sneak a fourth guy in here. I know he's not on the graphic.
I love sneaking a fourth.
But I am sneaking a fourth one in there, and that's going to be your friend Cade York, Brandon.
Yeah.
They're in Atlanta. You know, they're 1.5-point favorites. They've got a decent implied team total, 25.75, and he's only 18% rostered. And he's having a great season, his rookie year. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think he's K5 or 6 on the year. So Cade York is another one that is widely available still. And he's kind of my sneaky fourth guy. If all those other guys are gone, or if you're not into any of them, rookie Cade York has a ridiculous leg, and the Browns have, surprisingly been scoring points. So there's my 4 guys there. I could even go to a 5th, but I won't, because this is, a shortened podcast.
Read Jen's article, though. Jen's article.
Yes, they're all in there.
Streaming. Yeah, absolutely.
They're
all of these are there. Ray and Darren Cheese, your answers to our discussion doesn't change my answer. So I think you've got receivers, so I think you can probably go get McCaffrey. It looks like you probably need the running back upgrade. And then Ray, even if you have Keenan Allen, I still probably won't give up Mike Williams when you have Zach Ertz. I just don't think the delta between Pitts and Ertz is big enough to make it really, really worth doing that. Chris, I wanted to ask you about Philly, because Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, these two quarterbacks were maligned and criticized all offseason. And we could talk about it being early in the season and whatnot, but Jalen Hurts has shown out, and Philly looks good. Your early impressions on Jalen Hurts in this Philly offense?
You couldn't have asked for a better run out in terms of the better alignment between not just the player himself, because we saw mostly throughout his collegiate career that as he got more reps, he started to improve. He is definitely one of those guys that I know a lot of folks say with the superlatives of well, he's dedicated to his craft and yada yada yada. But Jalen Hurts has shown year over year consistently of being able to improve as long as you give him reps. We saw that in college. We're seeing that here. But also look at the adaptation from Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff as well, and also all the way up to the front office. They took this, I don't want to say a gamble, or they made some sort of gambit on trying to invest in Jalen Hurts. They're essentially investing in this offense as a whole. I mean, remember, they still had, at least at one point, they had the additional first round pick for 2023. So it's not like they completely pinned themselves into having Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback, but they have made this offense better. I mean, not just from the offensive line, being top 5 in the entire league, but also on the back end, the defense as well. But putting the personnel in place to really accentuate or bring Jalen Hurts forward as a passer. AJ Brown is just so critical to Hurts' progression as a quarterback, being able to have a wide receiver that can win not just in the short and intermediate areas of the field, but also deep. that complements what Devonta Smith does, like in the intermediate and deep areas of the field. And of course, you got Dallas Goedert running around there as well. I mean, this is a complete offense, and there's really we didn't have any excuse like for Jalen Hurts like when he came into this season, because all the personnel around him, he has all the options. And seeing him not only complete passes, but complete them with touch, complete them with accuracy, like he's at least moving forward as a passer. I believe he's around like average in terms of completion percentage over expected. I mean, all those things we expected to see, along with the rushing that's still a part of his game. So while I don't think that he's a better passer like than Tua at this point, I think like Tua is probably at least in terms of a processor. I do think that Tua probably has it because he's more of he can execute like much quicker than Jalen Hurts can. But overall, I think like both of them are moving in the right direction. And it's just it goes to show you, like, if you do invest in your team, you do invest like in your quarterback by surrounding them with positive talent, like these are the types of results you should expect to see. I'm looking right at you, Chicago Bears.
And makes me really excited about grabbing Jen's streaming kicker, Jake Elliott, and keeping him on my roster week after week. I grabbed him week 1, and he's still there in most of my leagues. I'm sticking with him. I just want to piggyback on what our wonderful producer Sal responded to Anton's question about the quarterback. I agree with streaming an option and not trading with your roster right now. And then wanted to say, Jacob, trading Dobbins for Schultz. I think if you wait a couple weeks, Dobbins is going to be more valuable anyway. So I think that the Ravens are easing him back into the offense, and I think he's going to start finding the end zone, and he's going to be more valuable. So I think you get better in trades for that later. Jen, Alex McBucket asks, would you trade DJ Moore and Jeff Wilson for CeeDee Lamb in a full PPR?
Would I trade DJ Moore and Jeff Wilson for CeeDee Lamb? Probably. I mean, DJ Moore is just, I don't know what's going to happen there. And Jeff Wilson, I mean, I don't know. It's tough because CeeDee Lamb was good last night, but he also wasn't, the week before. So, we're still in a really small sample size. But I mean, it obviously depends on the rest of your roster. But looking straight up just at that in a vacuum, I don't hate that. I'd probably do it.
Yeah, I like that. I see a much clearer path for the Dallas offense to improve than I do for the Carolina offense to improve. And then, Chris, I don't know about you, but Jeff Wilson, I like him and I love him as a streamer and someone to plug in. But as far as like counting on him week to week, I feel like that's going to be a head-scratching thing to try and count on. What do you think?
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I do think that there's plenty of things that the San Francisco offense as a whole needs to figure out, like moving forward, especially after Sunday night. So if you can at least use projected workload, because as of right now, it's not like, TDP is not back yet. Jordan Mason isn't pressing him for touches. I mean, there's really no other viable option for them in the running game at this point. So if you can at least use projected touches as a bargaining chip, like when you go into negotiation with somebody to try and trade him away, at least that would at least make his value seem like it's something that's worth taking on, like as like on the other side or on the flip side of that trade. But at the same time, it's like what is the value going to be? Like, what type of fantasy production can you expect? Like, does he really profile does he have RB1 upside? Is essentially what I'm asking. And at this point, looking at the San Francisco offense as a whole, I say no.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, I'm going to go through defensive streaming options this week. I'm going to be honest, it's a rough week to stream defenses. Most of the available defenses don't have great matchups. Some of the ones that do are struggling at times, like Atlanta has been up and down defensively, and Cleveland's been better offensively than we think, and so or than we thought they'd be. So I'm going to go a little bit this week and a little bit looking ahead to next week, right? So I'm sorry, Chris. I'm going to say the Miami Dolphins against your Cincinnati Bengals are a decent streaming option, mostly because they're a good year-long option. And they were dropped last week for everybody streaming because they were playing the Bills. So they did pretty good against the Bills, who have a high-powered offense. Not a bad defensive week for them. The Bengals, as good and as prolific and as high-powered as they are, Joe Burrow's a bit of a gambler, and Miami's pretty good at making splash plays. They have 3 defensive backs who are ball hawks. They have an emerging defensive line that can make some plays. So I think that, Burrow didn't throw a pick last week. They pretty much stomped on the Jets. But if you watch that game, Burrow tried to throw several picks last week. It was very He's a gunslinger by nature. Burrow is not afraid to let it loose. So I could see a turnover. I could see I could see a high scoring game, but I could see this being a little bit of a letdown for those expecting point totals in the 30s on each side of the field. And then most importantly, the Dolphins have the Jets the following week. Probably going to get Zach Wilson back for that game. I'm not optimistic or bullish about the Jets offense. I think that Miami is a nice one to pick up now, considering there's not a good streaming option available, and then kind of roll the dice against the Bengals, hope for a Burrow turnover, and then just reap the rewards next week against the Jets. Also, I kind of like both defenses in the Indy versus Tennessee matchup. I mostly like the Colts for the same reasons as the Dolphins. Really, the Colts are a good defense, and they're a defense that you can win with week to week. Tennessee has struggled defensively, and so while you're basically saying, do I want to take the good defense against a bad offense, or do I want to take the bad defense against a bad offense? And I'd rather take the good defense. So the Colts, good defensive line, good linebackers, even without Shaq Leonard. Unfortunately, he's been hurt, but they've still had good linebackers, good defensive backs. It's a solid defense. I think they could get splash plays as well. Ryan Tannehill has definitely been prone to have a nice Chipotle game where he shows up and craps the bed. This could very well happen in a division rival game. So I like the Colts there. Colts are quietly allowing 20.3 points per game so far this season. They just held the Chiefs to 17 points. They have talent. They're not bad, even though the Colts are struggling in general. So I also like Houston versus the Chargers. They're only rostered in 4%. Herbert doesn't look right. I know the Chargers offense is great, but he's nicked up. Keenan Allen's coming off a hamstring, like that can plague. The running game doesn't seem great. Rashawn Slater, their star left tackle's hurt. He's not coming back. So Houston, they're quietly the defense 12 on the season right now. I know they haven't played the best of offenses yet, but they're not a bad team. They're really well coached. Jerry Hughes has been a great addition. He's got 4 sacks so far. That's tied for second in the league. I think that if you need a deep streamer, Houston against the Chargers isn't a bad bet in what could be a low-scoring game, despite the talent on that Chargers offense. So those are my streaming takes. Jen, what do you think of this Houston team? It's been a little bit plucky.
Before I answer that, I do have something to add to your little your streaming. I just wanted to say I agree with you. So I write a weekly stash article, guys to stash for later. I wrote the Colts up in mine this week because they have Tennessee, and then the week after they have the Denver Broncos, who are as we all have discussed, struggling on offense. So to add to your pick up the Colts this week and then keep them for another week because they have the Broncos on tap. What was your question? Oh, Houston. What did you ask about them? I'm sorry, I was in my brain thinking. They've
just been kind of plucky. Brandon Cooks hasn't been great so far, but Davis Mills has been almost functional at times, and Dameon Pierce is starting to take the load on that team, and the defense has been pretty good. Are they kind of interesting to you? They were definitely a stay away outside of Cooks going into the season.
I feel like they're kind of who we thought they were. They were a stay away, but not really, because I feel like they were super cheap. So like in best ball, I was all about, those late stacks with Mills and Nico Collins. And, and he hasn't panned out how I thought he was going to pan out. I thought he was actually going to be doing a little bit better. I think, Davis Mills was kind of thrown into the fire last year with the whole Deshaun Watson disaster. And, it was a mess. And he kind of just got thrown in there. And I feel like this season he may take a while to warm up, but I feel like he's doing okay. Like you said, he's serviceable in that, and I feel like the team itself, like you said, with Dameon Pierce coming on, and I feel like Cooks, I don't know. I don't hate this team. And they've got, a rotating tight end situation, like different tight ends scoring touchdowns every week. So I don't hate this team. I feel like they're going to be kind of streamable and pick upable all season long quietly while everyone thinks they're going to be horrible. But fantasy wise, I feel like they may actually be better than people want them to be or people think they're going to be.
I like plucky teams. It's been fun to kind of see this happen. So I'm excited to watch that game. I just kind of want to see how the Chargers come out without Slater and how the Texans defense responds. Again, coached very well, at least especially on the defensive side of the ball. Chris, Greg Jernigan wants to know if you would trade Jalen Hurts and Jerry Jeudy for Jalen Waddle and Dak Prescott in a PPR. Would you be interested in that trade, Chris?
I would not. I would like to keep the quarterback 2, if at all possible, on my roster for as long as I possibly can. There are some I do wonder if at some point like the Jalen Hurts, because everyone's going to start talking about like the regression like coming for Jalen Hurts at some point, but I'm just struggling to figure out like when it's supposed to happen. Not to say that they've had at least tough defenses so far. I mean, Detroit, Minnesota, like Washington. Although I mean, I don't know. I guess they've got Dallas in week 6, but over the next couple of weeks and even after their bye, it looks like it's fairly smooth sailing like so far, I guess until we get maybe to the fantasy playoffs. But for right now, with the way that he's playing, with the way that offense is clicking, and with the way that that offensive line is still being able to provide like protection, I mean, he's still fairly low in terms of QB pressures as well. So it's like, I'm not sure like why you'd want to trade him away.
Yeah, unless your other quarterback is back as Josh Allen, I'm probably just keeping Jalen Hurts. I'm with you, Chris. I'm very, very much just keeping Jalen Hurts. And even then, I think your returns could probably be better. I like Jalen Waddle a lot, but I think you could probably get something more from that if you're moving Jalen Hurts, given what he's done. I'm with you, Chris.
Yeah.
That's all I've got this week. Thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat. Thank you, Chris and Jen. Always a pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at The Monday Mommy, at Chris Allen FFWX, and at 2 Guys Brandon. Thanks so much for checking us out, and have a good day.